All right, friends, welcome back to another Fake Nerd Book Club. We're here to get sex bombed. We're here to get our evil exes on. We're talking Scott Pilgrim. We're finally doing some book club discussions on Scott Pilgrim. We're talking about Volume 1, Scott Pilgrim's Precious Little Life, and Volume 2, Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
I've seen that movie.
We are Sam's branded for this, but we'll get him at a later date. For the rest of the books. Everybody's read these before, yes?
Oh, yeah.
These two? Yeah.
This
is a reread?
I mean, it's been literally...
I know you and I, Ben and I I've probably turned the pages on Scott Pilgrim many times.
It's been over a decade at this point.
Understood. Got you. Cool.
Yeah. The first time I ever read Scott Pilgrim, it was because a friend of the show, Jeff had the black and white volumes.
Yeah.
And I was at his house, and through one weekend, I just blazed through all 6 of them. And then when the hardcovers started coming out at Barnes & Noble, and I moved out of my parents' house, I started buying them myself. So, yeah.
I got my copies. I'd read the first volume from a friend and meant to pick up the series and then hadn't. And then I went hard and picked up like all the first 4. While I was at San Diego Comic-Con for the Scott Pilgrim versus the World premiere.
Nice.
So I was in it. I was in it to win it.
I saw the movie first, and I was like, I should check these out. And then the newer editions were coming out. Again, this was also still like a decade ago, though. And I read the first 4 because that was available at my Barnes & Noble or whatever. So I never finished it. So I'll get there eventually. Yeah.
I remember the first time I ever watched Scott Pilgrim, like the movie. I wanted to see it in theaters. I missed it in theaters. It wasn't until I was getting my first tattoo done. My tattoo artist had a bunch of DVDs and movies, and he would put them on for people to watch. So, you could get your... This was my first tattoo. I almost fainted on my first tattoo because I wasn't breathing because, first tattoo, it hurts.
Yeah.
And, we put on Scott Pilgrim versus the World, and I loved it.
I saw it 4 times in theaters, and I remember specifically, I dragged my friends to see it because I'm like, yo, have you heard of this shit? You seen this shit?
Hell yeah.
That movie bombed, unfortunately, but
it was a big bummer that it bombed. That is a shocking way for you to hear you saw this movie for the first time, Ben. Truly stunning. I'm sure we'll talk about that more on our Cinephiles review of that movie. Anyway,
we will, yeah.
Let me cover real quick. Written and drawn by Bryan Lee O'Malley. As Ben alluded to earlier, when the volumes were first published, it was black and white. It was later that they came out in color. We're going to go through these volumes and have a full discussion about it. I'm super excited.
I was about to say the colorist is Nathan Fairbairn. Fairbairn. Yeah, Fairbairn. I think because there's an I in between the last A and R, so I hope it's Fairbairn.
Fairbairn. The colors really pop.
Yeah,
like
the colors
having only red. Like I've seen the original black and white, but like having only red, actually the colored versions. Like the colors look great. It's a gorgeous book.
I gotta say, like in that note, like when I first read Scott Pilgrim and the colors were only in like certain inserts and cover pieces and things like that.
Yeah,
but most of it's black and white. Once I read the colored version later, I was like, this is exactly what I saw.
Yeah.
Like, I was like, this is like somehow Bryan Lee O'Malley conveyed the world in just the right way where like the colors are exactly what I expect them to be.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It was definitely a few years in between when I read the black and white version to the colored version. But I do remember when I did pick up the first volume of the colored version, I liked it a lot more than the black. And this is coming from someone who used to be an avid manga reader. I am all for black and white. I am 100% all in on black and white. I love black and white. But I don't know, just I felt with Scott Pilgrim, I don't know if it's just because this was my volume or this was like my like copy. It felt like, yeah, colors are great.
I really like that there's the color. I'll be honest, I haven't reread all of them in the colored editions, but I've reread the series multiple times in the black and white. the black and white always served me. Like I was always happy with it. Like I'm not upset to have the color versions at all. They're gorgeous. I really like them. The colors, like you said, pop very well. But the black and white had the not so much manga feel, I guess, but like the really small indie comic feel to me of like when we read kind of like Essex County. I know that's not all black and white, but like it's a loose color palette.
Yeah.
Right. Oh yeah.
And I think like The Walking Dead is a comic that was in black and white, which totally serves its purpose. Like The Walking Dead is a really great world already, being the apocalypse. But they're now releasing a colored version, and I'm completely fine with that. But like Scott Pilgrim really pops because like it is a really colorful book, even when it's black and white. The Walking Dead, like it's this is not me disrespecting the book whatsoever, but like it didn't feel as necessary as like, oh man, Scott Pilgrim, like it's almost like a new book, like in a way, because like this, like the colors are so it's so rich. It's a very rich book with colors too.
I think for me it's just cool so you can see Ramona's different hair colors. But that's just, I mean, I know in the black and white version there's the different shades, and there's like different, like, it's a different shades, and they do, and Bryan Lee O'Malley does great things to convey that Ramona changed her hair color again. But it's just nice to see the hair colors, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. So let's
sorry, real quick, but I do want to stress, whether you read Scott Pilgrim in black and white or in color, you're still getting a great story. Oh, yeah. It's still a great time. This isn't me saying only read the color version and don't read the black and white version. Read whatever you want or whatever you got, because I want to admit, like this one is a little more expensive than the black and white version. So,
but not that bad. Like for honestly,
it's not that bad.
It's not like it's a long running series.
Right.
You brought up manga earlier, and I desperately wish because manga is black and white because of the fast turnaround in it. That's the large reason why. Like a lot of those would be gorgeous. It's one of the reasons why the animes are so successful generally is you get to see it in color.
Yeah.
And you really don't get that a lot. Dragon Ball Z had a really great color initiative taken to it that stopped like mid Trunks. And I was really sad.
Actually, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, it's gorgeous. It's gorgeous to see it in color, and it didn't make it all the way through.
Yeah.
Anyway, for anyone who's only seen the film, this is going to sound super familiar to you. Scott Pilgrim is dating a high schooler.
Yeah.
And that's where we begin the story. Exactly like the film. In fact, the first volume, a lot of the movie.
Boy, howdy. Having not reread this in like a decade.
This was one of the reasons I wasn't too worried about it when Ben said it, because I'm like, you're going to skim through the first volume pretty quick.
That first volume is almost verbatim the movie.
Yeah.
And like that just goes to show, one, it's a good book and it's easily adaptable, but also like it's just a really great adaptation of the movie. Again, I'm not going to try to talk about the movie so much, but holy crap, as someone who's like memorized that movie, this volume one is like, I know that line, I know that line, I know that line, I know that line, I know that line. It's like they really got it. And really volume two is the first time it really starts to change a little bit. A lot of backstory stuff, but volume one is like, damn, that's that movie.
Yeah.
Almost like verbatim. It's crazy.
And I think that's really representational of like Bryan Lee O'Malley establishes so clearly and cleanly all the characters, the world, what you're getting. Like he got it so right.
Yeah.
That first time the movie had the exact template. Like, why would you deviate from these introductions?
It's so sharply written. There's like, you don't need to write your own lines, because like this book is going to be funny for all time.
Yeah.
Like this is like a book that'll live on forever, because like it doesn't feel like dated or anything, except for obviously some very specific time period stuff. Like it feels very classic and like just really, really, really well written.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. Ben, general thoughts, volume one?
Volume one, I was trying to think, because you guys are absolutely right. This is very much like the movie, and also I recently finished the Netflix series, which we will talk about here on the show eventually. And that first volume is just like the first episode, and things don't start changing until volume two. Oddly enough, when I was reading, I don't want to say this is a bad thing on volume one, but when I was reading volume one, I was like, okay, yeah, I've been here before. I've done this before. But when I got to volume two, that's when I was like, I kind of woke up a little bit more. It's not like volume one was putting me to sleep. It wasn't. I was just more engaged when I picked up and started reading volume two than when I was reading from volume one, because I feel volume one is something that we see quite a bit. It's kind of like when you're picking up a Sonic the Hedgehog game and they throw you in Green Hill Zone, and you're like, we know, we get it. We've
But
been here
but
before.
before the movie.
But this is the
that's
book.
not. That's not. Yeah.
I know what you're saying because
Yeah.
like your exposure and everything to it, but like when the book first comes out, this is incredible. Like this first
Right.
book is why the movie is good, is why the show is good, is why all of it's good, is because this first volume is so tight, so smart, so funny.
It's the blueprint.
It's amazing.
Yeah, the book itself is great. I absolutely love this book. To be perfect.
Going into some specifics that I really spotlight is I really like the establishment of Stacy as Scott's sister in this. I think in volume 1 you get a lot of really good there's almost the paneling for the page in particular I'm thinking of is like you kind of get a sense that Scott is only honest about himself and like doesn't like it with Stacy.
Yeah.
Because the way that she asks him, why are you doing this? And he's like, I don't know. It's just nice. You know, it's just simple. And he's like covering his face. And there's a disappointment with himself.
Yes.
In having to really talk through what he's doing. And it does feel like with his sister, she's the only person, and this will come up more in the books, that Scott kind of bears his full acknowledgement of who he knows he is.
Yeah. Something, having read it so long ago and seen the movie so many times, Scott's so much a bigger dirtbag in this than the movie.
Oh, 100%.
Like so much
100%.
more. Like so much more admitting to like
piece of shit.
What he's doing. And I'm like, man, like this book is so interesting because it's not often you have like your main character be the worst character in the book.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. And I see why people are like, wait, are we supposed to like Scott Pilgrim? I'm like, no, not really. The whole thing is about him hopefully growing out of this, like being this shitty 20-something, this like, not entitled, but like, man, just like we've all met those guys, like, who out of high school and they're coasting through life. They don't not sure what to do. They might be dating a teenager. And it's just like, oh, wow, you're a dirtbag. And it's so interesting to have it be our main character. And I think a lot of people push up against whether they've read it or not, or the movie, like they only know that, oh, Scott Pilgrim's dating a teenager. And I'm like, that's kind of like the point. And like, it's really interesting to have a like gross protagonist that we get to grow with.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's really cool in a weird way. Cause like you slowly start to see his growth like a tiny bit in the first 2 volumes, but he's still like, man, you got to figure yourself out, Scott. Everyone's telling you that you're a dirtbag, you're the scum of the earth.
I'm really glad you put it that way, because like not to go into the movie too much, but like by comparison, like as we said, volume 1, very much a similar template to the film, but it's striking to me how much the framing, the imagery, and like the line delivery in the movie versus what you read here feels so much more like it's hitting you clearer with Scott sucks. And in the movie, I think it's a little more like, oh gosh, Michael Cera, you are stirring up dumb shit. Yeah. And here it's like, oh, Scott's like a bad person.
He's legitimately just like a bad person. And I like that we get so much more. It's not a lot more, but we do get more about Knives and her family. And again, it is such a great adaptation, the movie, but the book really just like lets you live in it a little bit more. And there's a couple more lines that are taken out of the movie that just like solidify that, like, yeah, this guy's a dirtbag.
A perfect example of what you're talking about, if I may, is this bit where he's going out with Knives, and this is when things are good from Scott's perspective, like, oh yeah, I'm enjoying this, whatever. And they're looking at clothing items at the bargain place, and she's like, this is actually pretty cute. Too bad it's winter. And he says, hey, spring's around the corner. Try it on. She's like, no, I mean, it's not like I'd buy it. And she's super embarrassed and everything. And like the read in her face is clearly like she's blushing. She wants Scott to buy it for her. And Scott's, as you said,
oblivious.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Same page.
Scott's not a person who's done the things he needs to do to be responsible enough that he can provide that.
Yeah.
So like he's egging her into this with no intent on like doing anything for her. He's just like, yeah, I mean, like enjoy it. And she's like, no, I can't buy it. So like
the fake, like, Scott, you need to dump your fake high school girlfriend thing is like so much more real in this, because like he's not even treating her like a girlfriend. He's treating her like almost like a pet. We're like, yeah, it's just nice, to have someone where it's drama free. I don't have to think about it, but like she's also a person, Scott.
We'll get into volume 2, but like the timing of when he tells Knives in the books versus in the movie, I do think it's moved up just to like, I don't think they had quite the faith that you would follow the movie if you dislike Scott as much as you do.
Yeah.
Even though it's like really, really getting close to what the books are doing. Like there's something about the timing because it's after the second time that he and Ramona are like really together.
Yeah.
That he finally goes and dumps her.
Yeah.
Well, that's getting into volume 2 stuff, but like I think that's really striking.
No, also I wanted to talk about this moment. Like it's right after the part Sparkz mentions where they're at the Goodwill and they're shopping. Scott shows Knives his childhood home. And he's like, this is where it all happened. And she's like, it's so pretty. And he instantly just goes, I'll walk you to the bus stop. And the next page is him seeing Ramona in his dream again. Mm-hmm. And it's like, dude, if you're not going to talk to your quote unquote girlfriend, then freaking why are you with her? I mean,
this is a key thing. I'm really glad that you're bringing this up, Ben, because I would have also. This is the first time that we see this behavior from Scott, where like he'll start to talk about something from his past, his life, and then he'll be like, "I really don't want to do that," and he'll change the subject, or he'll just move away from it and get distracted by something else on purpose. And he's going to do this multiple times throughout these books about all kinds of things. But I do think it's interesting. There is something like the movie has no room for this, but like if you're not familiar with the books and this is your first exposure, I highly encourage you read them. But what happens in the books is you get a lot more of this built-in idea of like something's off about Scott's relationship with his parents. And like, it's never, I'll tell you, like, they never 100% go there with him about it, because I don't think the story is really about that. Yeah. But there's something Scott's bitter about his parents over.
Well, they're gallivanting in Europe while he is in between jobs and broke. So meaning they got money, but he doesn't. So there's something there they don't really go into. Yeah. And then
but there's even like in this there's like a sadness in like, no, they sold the house that I used to live in, which he likes, or he wouldn't be there. Yeah.
I think there's also sorry. I don't know if I know we're doing both volume 1 and volume 2, but I really think that a huge problem from his parents, you can kind of see it into volume 2. And it's one of the montage scenes, because one thing I do love about volume 2 is how we get more into like Scott's history. Like we see him at his first, the first chapter is him in his new high school where he meets Lisa and he gets into his first fight when he goes into his transfer schools. And then he meets Lisa, he meets Kim, the band Sonic and Knuckles gets formed. And then almost instantly is a silent, like 4 pages of Kim just talking to Scott, saying him moving to Toronto and him looking super sad and looking back at Kim. Yeah. Yeah. I want to say that that's part of why he's so mad at his parents, is because he had something great in his old school and then his parents just up and moved him away.
Yeah, there's something interesting here too about that Kim, we'll get into it, but like we are in Toronto now, which means Kim followed Scott. And like that's gonna be character stuff for them later. But like you're right, like there's also kind of an idea there that this was pre-Scott being really shitty with girls. Like he's obviously like oblivious about Lisa. Yeah, 100%.
Oh, hardcore. But I do remember like, later,
but he's not the actively shitty person that he is at the current time period. And so like there is kind of this implication, like Kim is in many ways the one person that the one girl that Scott hurt, that he like didn't handle it well in talking to her about it, and like stuff will come up about that. But Scott didn't break this off. Scott, against his will, is taken away by his parents. And I do think that is you're right, Ben, but you know where this is going. So like, but that is crucial. That's a part of what it is. But yeah, you're right. But you're right to bring that up, because like it is his parents taking him away, moving him around the place, and then taking him to Toronto, where it's shown that he didn't want to do it to begin with. Mm-hmm. And now they've left him there. Like he's just there now. And he doesn't have where they moved to as a house. His parents aren't there. He's got his sister.
There's also there's also the scene where he's on the phone with his parents. Where to go. Oh,
yes, here it is. In volume 2, where he's talking.
They're in Rome.
He's talking. They're Romans. He's talking while Ramona's there. Yeah, and they're just all interested in the trip. And they're like, oh, you'll get something going, Scott. You'll get a girlfriend or something, you know.
Is she? It's dad. Is she cute? Ask if she's cute.
There is an amount where like, if you really want to put a like hard deep read into it, Scott's parents don't know how to properly love him, which is part of why Scott doesn't know how to properly love anybody, including himself.
Yeah.
You can definitely put that read into it, and like Stacy, to her credit, not only seems to understand that her parents are like that, but understand how it's affected Scott in a way that it didn't affect her.
Yeah.
Like, she acknowledges that their parents are kind of shitty. It just doesn't live with her the same way it lives with Scott.
What I like, she is like 4 years younger, but she is like way more emotionally.
She even calls herself the older sister.
That's like the running joke. But she's like more emotionally intelligent than he is. Despite being like a teenager, being like into like like drama and blah blah blah. Like, she handles things, and the way she talks about things, there's a little more delicate than Scott handles it.
Yeah, just a bit.
I really like the just like speaking from a book perspective, the world building concept. Ramona's explanation of the subspace highway. This was the stuff where like you're in the first volume, you're just kind of figuring out the world. And she's like, oh yeah, there's just like this super convenient thing. It goes right through your head. I guess you guys don't have them and can't.
You don't have it up here.
You don't teach it. It's not that you don't have it. You don't like teach it. That's why no one knows how to use it. And she's like, that's why it's always so empty. Which I think is really funny, and like it doesn't need more explanation than that, but it is one of those things that starts building up the world into like the kind of wacky kooky thing it is.
One thing I really like about this book is how like it breaks the fourth wall, but not in a way where it's like Deadpool like looks at the camera. It's like, oh, you want to know more about that? Read it in the next volume. And I'm just like, that's just really funny. It's just that happens a couple times.
Maybe that'll happen in volume 3. Well, and like it's that kind of thing. So it's double layer, right? So like one thing is when Scott says things like that, where he's like, so we'll get into that backstory later. So like in volume 3, he's like, maybe volume 5 for that one.
Kim, and then he's talking to Kim about something, and he's like, oh, Kim, you should just read the book.
You should just read the book.
And that's really good.
But there's Scott lives right on that level where he's so like passive about like getting into details.
Yeah.
That feels like a way he can also just talk.
Yeah.
And what I was going to say is like the other way that it's like doing the fourth wall stuff is you've got your omniscient narrator guide who details things in the world for you. So like tells you like age of Scott and things like that, or like Wallace when they break down Scott and Wallace's apartment, right? And it's like, this is Wallace's, this is Wallace's, this is Scott wearing Wallace's socks.
I was gonna bring it out. That's my favorite one. It's Wallace's socks on Scott.
It's Scott's toothbrush, which Wallace bought.
That's really, really good.
Yeah, it's that kind of stuff that also like really fleshes out the world. And like you've got your omniscient narrator who will tell you flat out like Scott's full of shit right here.
Yeah. And I love that they don't go into more detail, but like, oh yeah, Scott's the best fighter in the province. Like, okay.
Yes.
How? Why? Sure.
I love that. Like, again, going to that world building thing, like that was one of my favorite things that I kind of wish was in the movie. Is like once Matthew Patel shows up, Scott just like blocks him, gets into the fight.
64 hit combo.
And they're just like, man, is this guy crazy? Scott's like the best fighter in the province, which really says something because like it's the only thing anybody thinks is cool about Scott.
Yeah.
Like, notably, you're hearing it from Kim, who has shit on Scott the entire time up to this point.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, Scott is the best fighter. Like, that's true. Like, it really, like, I think it orients the whole fight concept as, like, a thing that happens often in the world, right? Like put yourself in the Scott Pilgrim world, like, these kinds of things come up a lot. Mm-hmm. There's a lot more, like, acceptance and acknowledgement right out of the gate of it. And there's an acknowledgement that, like, Scott's not just, like, suddenly taking on these guys and learning how to handle himself. Scott's been a good fighter in the terms of like how the world operates before.
Yeah.
That's his one established, like, yeah, he's good at that.
And we do get a little bit in volume 2 in his like his quote unquote like origin of how, like, you know, him in high school and stuff, and him going and go rescue Kim from the evil high school that kidnapped her. I really love that. We will get into that. Sticking to volume 1 just a little bit more, pretty much everything about Ramona and Scott coming together is 1-for-1 to the film. Yeah.
And I think that's because it's written genius, genius craftsmanship here. I like even more the bit when he's looking for Ramona at the party. He's like, have you seen a girl with hair like this? Like, her hair's just like this. Do you know who that is? And it's like, oh, you mean Ramona Flowers?
Again, I love the Comio, whatever that guy's name is. Like, yeah, I know everybody. Do you know this girl from this one description? Oh, you mean Ramona? Like, that's just really funny. It's great. There's a great there's a great young Neil joke where
yes, I think I know exactly which one you're talking
about. Yeah, this one.
Yeah, God, yeah.
Like, oh, Knives needs to come. She's our biggest fan. And then young Neil
just gets up and he's like, other than you, Neil. I love one of the things is I really like Neil in the movie. I like the actor they got for him. I love Neil here. I think Neil's such a nice little addition to the cast.
Yeah.
He's wonderful. We get a really lovely spotlight flashback. It's one of the only times we'll see an image from this time period this way.
With Natalie.
Of when Natalie was lead singer in the band when Scott's having a dream. Before she turns all envy, which I really like. Hey, the build up to envy in both books is really good.
Yeah.
I think they do a really good job keeping that around. Going back to when Matthew Patel shows up, I also really like that everybody just jumps into a stance with Scott.
It feels like it turns into like a Bollywood movie.
Yeah, it just turns into like, yes, we assume the positions.
Yeah.
Like this is again, like I kind of like the comics interpretation of this is just a part of the way the world works.
Yeah.
Is that sometimes you get like a big beef going and this is how the beef gets settled.
Yeah.
Again, like kind of talking how when we talk Mortal Kombat and it's like you settle your conflicts through like hard, brutal tournaments.
Absolutely. Oh, like, someone stepped on your foot. Now it's time to kick their ass and destroy them.
That's just the law of the land, and the law of the land here is like that these fights sometimes happen.
Yeah.
Which I think is great.
It's like this old Japanese samurai legend that I heard, or I don't know if it was a legend. I think it used to be a custom back in feudal times. But if like two wandering swordsmen are walking past and their swords for some reason touch, then it's like, well, we have to fight. It's like no stopping. It's like if their swords touch, they have to fight. There's no getting out of it.
Right.
That just seems dangerous. Just be careful. Don't touch swords.
It was feudal Japan. It was very dangerous back then.
Yeah. I love Crash and the Boys. I forgot that they make everybody knock everyone out with their song.
I love when they're talking about it in the back room and it's like and then it's like I've seen this number. It just like makes the audience unconscious for 20 minutes. We're playing next.
Yeah.
Steven, we're playing next. Yeah. I love that. I think that's really, really cool.
Yeah. Or when whatchamacallit, Wallace is heckling them and the drummer is just flipping them off.
Yes.
It's like, okay, this is for the guy who keeps yelling at us in the balcony. This song is called "We Hate You, Please Die."
Yeah.
There's Scott hates. I think this isn't a volume 2, sorry, but it came up. But Scott like hates like, oh, you hate every bass player, Scott. Oh no, maybe it is volume 1. I hate every bass player, and then Kim finds out that the drummer's a girl. She's like, I hate that girl. Yeah. I'm like, no, everybody hates everybody. That's opposed to them in the same league. That's
funny. When Scott brings up Gideon at the end of volume 1, Ramona gets these lines around her head, her like spider sense tingle thing going on.
Anime lines.
But you realize that Scott can kind of see that there's a look to this.
What's on your head?
And he tries to ask questions about it after they've just said they were dating and smiling. And he's like, do you still want to go out with me? And she's like, yes. It feels like super weird and uncomfortable about it. Which is such I think a solid like volume 1 note. Again, like also just like the envy buildup stuff is very good in this volume. So is the Gideon buildup. You're getting Gideon stuff early on.
Yeah, all the stuff.
I just took so many pictures of like lines that I love it on my. Yeah, these are also in the movie.
Are you guys familiar?
It is so well written. It's crazy.
It is. Are you guys familiar with the YouTuber Comic Drake? I know I've mentioned him on the show a few times before.
Yeah, I am. I watch him.
No, because he put out a video recently about Scott Pilgrim. He reread the Scott Pilgrim stuff in conjunction with the show, and rereading this now as like an adult, someone who knows the story forward and backward, but who's now able to pick up more on like little subtle cues that maybe Bryan Lee O'Malley was trying to put in. It's a trip read because when I first read it, I was in my 20s. Now in my 30s, and I don't want to say it's a different read, but you definitely pick up on a whole lot more stuff. Like there's a scene in volume 1 where Knives comes to Scott's house and they go out on a air quotes date, and the whole time Knives is talking and Scott just doesn't give a shit.
Yeah,
he's just like, yeah. It's like, wow, Scott, yeah, you like. A lot of times I read this book, I'm like, wow, Scott, you suck.
Yeah, every subsequent time whether I watched the movie or read the book, a decade ago, and now, I'm in my 30s, I'm like, man, like people suck when they're in their 20s, man. Really, like being young is tough, but like being young and mean is awful. Knives is so great. She's a lovely kid, a lovely person. And like her becoming like a psycho ninja lady is really funny, but it's also like really sad because like Scott sucks, and like, girl, you deserve so much better than that.
Right.
Oh yeah. Like in volume 2 when she brings her friend over, and then when she realizes that Scott was cheating on her with Ramona, I'm just like, nah, it's just bail. Just run away. Just don't look back. Just leave him. Just stop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Her friend's like, are you sure? Was he two-timing you? And I was like, no, he's the sweetest guy ever. He would never do that. And I'm like, yeah, okay, girl. Okay. Go dye your hair.
We'll switch over and get into volume 2 because I do think volume 1 is like, it's hard to not just get into everything that's in the movie to an extent. It's just to go, one last note I have on it is just as a first volume book, much to Ben's point, it's very clear from the first volume that it's not a shallow read.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of depth to the text here. And Bryan Lee O'Malley is trying to set up a lot and do a lot. And like, even though I'm pretty sure that he's talked about, like, he didn't have like everything in his head of where it was going to go from the jump. He clearly had like certain intentions and character arcs that he knew the large beats of, and he builds them from the beginning and they follow all the way through. Certainly like a lot of stuff with Kim and Scott that doesn't come around till like volume 5, volume 6. Those things were baked in here very clearly from volume 1, volume 2. And I do think like you just feel this sense of a deep richness to the world, to the characters, to the text itself.
I don't know if you guys checked it out, but the behind the scenes stuff at the end of these volumes are really great, and they go into full depth about like, yo, Bryan Lee O'Malley was a young kid in Toronto who did half of the same shit. He didn't say he dated a teenager, but basically everything else, like, this was his life. Yeah. Like being on the bus, being poor, living in like a weird place with his friend with one bed, him loving the X-Men and being a music nerd. Like this is so like a Bryan Lee O'Malley book. And like once you like read like about him, I'm like, man, like you put like your whole self into this book, and it's really great. It feels like a really authentic, like an authentic, also Canadian book, which is
yeah.
Cool.
Going into volume 2, right off the jump, we get heavy duty lore flashback stuff with Scott.
Yeah, I forgot all
and
this
a
stuff.
girl named Lisa.
Oh yeah.
I don't know who Lisa is. I completely forgot. No idea.
And Kim, which I think is great. So obviously, like from the beat of meeting Lisa after he got into like a big fight thing, Lisa just kind of inserts herself into Scott's life.
Mm-hmm.
And there's definitely like the read you can get there where she likes Scott and Scott just seems to be like 100% oblivious, and to the degree where he's quite rude to her, constantly like telling her to kind of get out of his life.
Yeah.
And it leads to what I think is a really good page, which is where she's just sitting in front of a tree with a leaf. And Scott goes by and he notices and says, hey, and sits with her. And she's like, do you hate me? And I think that's a very good, like, as I said earlier, like Scott hadn't quite become the bad apple that he is in the majority of the story here. But like Scott felt like he could just totally miss what was going on with other people. Like he's very non-empathetic.
Yes.
Like this, like the scene where Lisa shows up at his house when he's in the basement playing video games.
Yeah.
And he doesn't even look her direction. He just constantly staring at the TV saying, no, we can't be friends. It's like it's like, don't do this. We don't have lemonade. We just have iced tea. And Lisa, you know, obviously she has a thing for him, but at the same time, like Scott, like he's oblivious. I know we've all had those times where like years later we're just doing some random task and all of a sudden our brain just goes, oh crap, that one girl from that one time was flirting with me and I had no idea.
Sure. Yeah.
And yeah, even just going in through the book where he's talking with Lisa and then he meets Kim, it's like this. Okay, so Scott was a bit of a jerk, but then he and Lisa actually do form this band. And after that talk where Lisa asked if he hated him, he hated her, he kind of lightens up a little bit. They're chill.
Yeah, he starts being her friend, but like I think it's really smart and important that Bryan Lee O'Malley puts that page there. I think it really shows like the unintentional isolation Scott creates around him. for others who are just trying to connect with him.
Yeah.
Like even if you put aside like a romantic interest that it does seem Lisa has at this point in time for Scott, even if she just wanted to be his friend, like Scott is quite like rude out of the
and he's like
about it.
ambivalent and like to the whole situation. Yeah.
And to further go on that, like he gets shit from his parents about is she your girlfriend kind of thing, and it immediately cuts from that conversation to him hanging out with her in a parking lot, and she says they don't want you hanging out with girls. What are they, 5? And that's not true. That's not what the parents were saying at all. They were just giving him shit, and Scott doesn't want to get it, so he makes up this lie so that Lisa won't be around his parents anymore.
What a lame-o. Man, after reading that, I'm like, geez, like this is the start of, man, Scott Pilgrim is a dirtbag.
I mean, one thing, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but to give Scott like a tiny little bit of credit is after him and Kim do like get together, he's not putting his other friends away. Like there's this tiny little montage of all of them hanging out. It's him, Lisa, Kim, and I think Lauren is the other girl. And they're playing video games. Scott and Kim got an A on their presentation. They all formed a band together. And while Scott and Kim are doing like couple stuff, they aren't putting their friends on the outside. It's not until he moves away to Toronto where that all ends.
Right. And I do think it's notable that like Bryan Lee O'Malley clearly puts like Kim's friend who meets Scott, like the first time she meets him, it's a short hello. She's got an eyebrow raised. Like she doesn't trust Scott.
Yeah.
For one reason or another. And I think there's also just before that, when Lisa and Scott are finally hanging out and like they're playing on instruments together, Lisa says, "You know how I'm not a goth and you're not a jock," and Scott's like, I am such a jock," and it really like contextualizes that, like, yeah, Scott just says stupid things, but Scott means that. Like he thinks of himself that way. That's why he thinks he could treat Lisa the way he treated her. Scott thinks he's the shit, especially because like we all know Scott's the best fighter in the province. So Scott's a really good fighter. He does think he's got a lot of shit under his belt, especially because like the moment that they take Kim, like Scott jumps into action and he kicks everyone's ass.
Yeah. And it's like he's not really good at connecting with people, but he is good at using his fists. So like any opportunity to, like it seems like he will fight a dude because he's really good at it too. And like, oh, I get to go do something and like look like a hero. Hell yeah. And then of course Kim falls for him.
He's such a hyper masculine hero that's like closing in on himself. He's so afraid of real emotion.
Yeah.
Like he runs from it at every opportunity. I do love the whole bit of him going after Simon and getting to him and Kim just being like, "Scott, this sucks. Can you help me?"
He does this thing like Johnny Cage, like punch that like shows like him like phasing or like going really fast.
And Simon like goes partway around the earth, which is what the line they reference in the movie where they say like it's supposed to be in the movie Scott just saying it to shut up the comparison to Ramona's boyfriends and all that. Yeah. He says like I had to fight like 100 guys to get to him because he kidnapped Kim, and then I kicked him around the curvature of the earth.
Yeah.
So like I think that's at least a cute acknowledgement of the story you have here, which is far more deep for the Kim and Scott relationship that comes from it.
Yeah. Sonic and Knuckles. You loved it, Ben.
Of course I did.
Hell yeah.
Every time there's a Sonic reference. Also earlier, I did take a picture just for Ben. There is the part when Lisa comes down. The video game that Scott is playing is clearly Sonic the Hedgehog.
Yeah.
Because you see his little red, but not blue red image, but it's clearly in the hedgehog shape with the rings around. And I was like, "There's Sonic."
Yeah. Is this the volume where also like where he calls Wallace or something, and like I'm not going to give you like cheat codes or something? Yes, I don't remember.
For Sonic 3.
For Sonic 3. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's good.
And even when Wallace, and even when Wallace comes back, he's like, "Is this what happened when I saved?" What? He's like, "Oh no, is this from what? Did you find out I saved over your file in Final Fantasy? No, last time that happened, you cried."
Oh yeah.
Oh no, it's envy.
There's a lot of good Sonic references in the Scott Pilgrim books, which is one of the reasons why Ben and I love it so much, I'm sure. So
I didn't remember the Lucas Lee stuff again because I haven't read this book in a long time. Like and I think it's just because I'm so in love with the movie. Like I thought there was way more Lucas Lee stuff. And like it's very much like, oh, he just goes and meets him at a park bench and they fight. I really like the adaptation in the movie better, if I'm being honest, but that's comes from the source material thing.
Yeah.
They get into some good conversation, but like I I was bringing so much movie knowledge into this reread. Where I'm like, oh yeah, they just talk to each other on a park bench and then they duke it out. I'm like, oh yeah, very nonchalant.
So what I really like about Lucas Lee in the books is I do like that, you know, they joke about it in the movie and to do the turn on it where he's like, no, I'm kidding. But here he's like, yeah, I have a cooler with some Gatorade and baby carrots and Ritz crackers. And you're like, wow, man, that sounds so good. And they sit there and they talk together.
Yeah.
And that's where Lucas Lee says that Ramona cheated on him.
Yeah.
And like you can read into that as like, oh, is he just saying that and like he's misinterpreting, or is that truth of who Ramona is? And I really like that you've got Kim and Wallace sitting on the side, and Kim says, who does that remind you of?
Yep.
Wallace says, you know, maybe Scott and Ramona are actually a match made in heaven, which is a really important core part of what the books are going to do, which is that there's a lot of the same problems and trauma going on for both of those characters.
Before I even got to that panel, I was like, damn, this is just what Scott was doing. And then Kim says, hey, this is what Scott was doing. I'm like, oh yeah. Good parallel.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, didn't Scott do that? Spoilers, he did.
I also do really like Lucas Lee being like, all right, look, cool. You give me your money and I'll just let Gideon know that you beat me up, okay?
Yeah.
He's like, damn, you really are a sellout. He's like, all right, kiss Ramona's sweet ass goodbyes. I thought all that was really good. And just while we're on the Lucas Lee bit, I also love him getting the Mithril skateboard at the end.
Yes.
As the item that he gets from the fight. And then he's like, no, I can't even use this. Why didn't I pick that skateboard proficiency back in grade 5? Pop, no.
Very D&D. Like, no, I can't use this weapon. I'm not proficient in it. That's really good.
That's I just love all the video game references in this book. Not just the Sonic ones, but all the video game-esque jokes. This is jumping way ahead, but when Scott gets an extra life, it's just funny.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I want to spotlight just jumping backwards in the book a bit. Kim, we get into Kim's dreams for the first time, and Kim's dreaming about the funeral of Scott Pilgrim.
Yes.
Where everybody's like, I don't know, it's kind of sad, sort of. And Scott looks up at her and he's like, do you dream about this kind of thing often? And you get to start to follow the day from Kim's perspective for a bit, which I thought was really good. But I think that's a really strong window into like what's going on with Kim, is that she literally dreams about Scott's funeral. That's a deep, deep problem between them.
My name is Knives Chow, and I'm a Scottaholic. That line got me.
God.
Also, I love the Luke Wilson jokes that pop up in this volume. And then he meets him like, wait, are you Lucas Lee? No, I'm Luke Wilson.
And he's like,
give me a break. Come on.
Yeah, when he meets Lucas Lee, he's like, Luke Wilson? And he's like, oh, I screwed up.
I love also, I really like the scene where, I gotta research this guy that I'm gonna fight. So he watches a bunch of bad movies with Ramona. And that's just like really cute. Like, oh, do you want to do this? And Ramona's like, I don't mind. It's fine. We dated like 1,000 years ago. It's no big deal.
I do like here in the books, like Ramona being much more active participant in him preparing to face the exes.
Yeah.
And like, it's something they converse about. It's like one of the only things they openly converse about.
It doesn't feel so much like the movie. It's almost like a surprise every time a fight's going to happen. Whereas like, no, I know, like I have a scheduled date with this man for a fight. Let's train for it. Like a Rocky montage style. Watch all these bad movies.
Yeah. Going back real quick to the breakup with Knives, as I said, it comes later here than it did in the film. I really like the way that Wallace forces it on him. I like that he tricks him with the bus, and he's like, yeah, so you can't come home. I got stuff going on. He's like, wait, what? But we are home. This is our stop. And he's like, yeah, I'll see you tomorrow, Scott. You suck. Surprising no one. If bad was a boot, you'd fit it. And then like the bus is far around the corner.
And it gets smaller and smaller.
You're a stupid poo-poo head. I had sexual relations with your mother. That bus just keeps getting just shrinking.
Bus gets smaller. The text gets smaller. Yeah, it's
I love that.
Good job.
That was just hilarious. This whole bit right here where it's just getting smaller and smaller as it's driving away. Although, I have to say, I'm just glad I could actually read the text, because you know how sometimes it's just like the squiggly lines because they're so far away you can't make out what they're saying. I'm glad that you actually get to see all the jokes.
You can read every word. Bryan Lee O'Malley, I think this is just a great example to spotlight what I'm about to say. He's so good at capturing really great emotions on pretty simple faces that
on
he
cartoon
sets up.
Characters, basically.
Like, the emotion on Knives' face when Scott's ready to break up with her is so
I just looked at a whole I just looked at a whole scene right there because I was going to spotlight it. Because like you get Knives right here, full of hope. She's like, "Oh, I'm in love with," being a 17-year-old high school kid, thinking like, "Oh, this is love. I'm true. The Disney songs make sense." And then Scott immediately just destroying it.
It's such an interesting art style because like it's not quite like an like anime manga. Like it's more like kind of like its own cartoony look, but like it adapts like manga sensibilities with like especially with the eye stuff. Like when people are like ooh wooing or something like that, or like a big expressional faces. He's really good. And again, like I said, like for simplistic character designs, like you're able to get a lot of read into all of their emotions.
Yeah.
And he's a really talented guy.
And also I want to spotlight his exceptional paneling, which the movie correctly like adapts and tries to integrate. But
yeah,
the paneling when he's sitting on the bus and trying to forget about the look on Knives' face, and he's like, "Gotta shove that image out, put Ramona in.
Yep.
I'm over it.
Everything's
Gets off the
fine.
bus whistling like, oh yeah, that's all good.
Got my new girlfriend." This isn't
Oh,
in
you're
the
the scum of
movie
the
at
earth,
all.
Scott.
This isn't in the movie at all, but is Scott bisexual?
Oh, are you referencing the?
He's kind of hot though. Like Lucas Lee, isn't he? And she's like, "You're not convincing me that you're not gay, Scott."
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's not like it's. I don't know how much this comes up in other volumes, but like, there's a little bit of like stuff with him and Wallace, where like they have like a not. I'm not gonna say like they have a past, but like it's brought up they have like kind of like a weird relationship, how they like became friends and how they live together.
It's right here. Like, it's Kim's asking, how did you end up living with that guy anyway? I'd rather not talk about it. Was it a really gay story? And he's like, the story is somewhat gay, yes.
So like, I'm not convinced. Again, like further volumes might like disprove it, but like there might be a little like bisexuality to Scott.
I'll say that there's nothing in the books that would call me out and right like a bisexual.
Yeah.
I will say that I think Bryan Lee O'Malley does recognize sexuality as a spectrum, even at this point in time, and so doesn't feel like Scott can't. At least play with the amount he recognizes men as attractive.
He can appreciate a hot dude.
Yeah. But I don't think that like the intention is Scott's bisexual.
Yeah.
But Bryan Lee O'Malley, just the way he's talked about characters and politics and all these kinds of things, like I could quite believe that at the time he knew sexuality was a spectrum and he was willing to play with it.
Because like these books came out in like 2004 or 2005, and like that's like. I don't remember me reading a lot of comic books that deal with this. Like, again, it's not like it's a complex ideal or anything, but like talking about having a man like, yo, I think that dude's hot. Like, I don't remember reading that in many 2004 comic books.
Now, a different character is bisexual.
Yeah.
And we'll get into that later in the comics. But, so that's, but I do think like, again, that's just Lee O'Malley being pretty aware that like sexuality can be mess around with.
It's progressive for like a book from like almost 20 years ago.
Absolutely.
And then it hurts to say this book's almost 20 years old. That's crazy.
Another thing like I think is worth spotlighting is we've talked about how much Scott sucks and like he's a piece of shit.
Yes.
It's worth noting Bryan Lee O'Malley writes a lot of really good female characters.
Yeah.
Like a lot of strong and I mean like strong in how clear their characterization is.
Yeah.
Really strong and clear female characters that all feel unique, all have depth and personality and all these kinds of things. I have multiple favorites, and I think that's like he has just. I don't think there's a bad character in his wide cast of characters. I think they're all strong.
Yeah.
But I do think it's worth the credit, especially again going back to at the time a male writer writing so many really wonderful female characters who are so front and center. Like it's not just Ramona and Knives and Kim. You've got Julie. You've got Stacy.
Yeah.
You've got Lisa. You've got Envy.
And you're right. They all do have distinct voices. Like I know I can tell like if you made it all again like black and white or like covered the faces like that's definitely Julie because Julie's kind of a hard bitch,
right?
Or like that's definitely a sister or definitely or Kim, and like they're all very distinct.
Yeah. Definitely worth a shout out. There's a lot of things I love in Volume 2. Volume 2 does essentially work as like half the Lucas Lee story and then half build up for like Volume 3. Which is like, really exciting.
I've been trying to flip through Volume 2 to find it because a while ago we mentioned about how well Bryan Lee O'Malley draws people's eyes and how he gets expression across. And it's not like an extreme anime style where people like do like the shocked face, their eyes go all big. But this is one of my favorites, and it's like when Envy calls and it's just hi Scott.
Yeah, it's
and
one of mine too.
And Scott's eyes just like shoot immediately open, and he's like, "Oh," Shit.
That's a great pull because obviously that's a huge moment in itself.
Yeah.
But I do think it's like a really big and clear highlight of something Bryan Lee O'Malley does really well, also, which is like he really knows when to use a negative space.
Yes. And it's like pages of like his conversation, and it's like nothing's happening because like Scott is like so shocked right now.
Yeah, he's so good at filling these environments. Like the pages are often full of so much stuff and thoughtful environment creation in the art. And so when he strips all that away for a plain color, it really stands out. And like he does that, like again, the small panel of knives when Scott is remembering what she looks like, it stands out because he's not picturing knives in the environment. He's picturing knives just in the black.
Yeah.
There's a couple of other moments, like when they're going through the snow to find the door, like that negative space between Scott, Ramona, and the door it's really striking. That's a big visual highlighted moment. That's another double page spread in volume 1. And just as you put up, Ben, like the completely orange, which is also an interesting color choice, which I really like, but the completely orange spread, one simple small word bubble, hi Scott, and Scott's face does so much because of how Bryan Lee O'Malley has used his environments up to that point. And then when he wipes it all away for a negative space, boy, does it punch.
Yeah.
It's really strong.
Yeah. And it's I'm not gonna, like, this, what I'm about to say is not a negative, but like it's a busy book. Like it's like there's a lot of dialogue, there's a lot of like paneling. So like again, when you juxtapose to like just like one small like word bubble, like you really feel it, like you really see it, like you really like, it's really well done.
Yeah, I think Bryan Lee O'Malley, like for being like the smaller indie comic creator that he was at the time that he was making Scott Pilgrim.
Oh yeah.
His capabilities with paneling, like even in the piece I had up earlier when Kim's having her dream and Kim's head, and like this often happens, the character's head is overlaid over what you're seeing in the dream in the panels in the back. The way he uses the full space of the page and the way that he changes it up, it's really dynamic, and it keeps the book moving and feeling alive.
And it's like it's not a well, it is a brisk read, but like the how quickly you can go through it, like it's like you don't even notice it. Like it's really well paced. Like it is a perfectly paced book. Like it's consistently funny, it's consistently dramatic. I never felt bored reading it or anything. It's just like it's a really good package. And like when it ends, like when volume 1 ends or when volume 2 ends, you're like, oh damn, I do want to keep reading this. Like it's really good. And it's interesting that like, because this is like an original graphic novel, but it's like released like issue 1, issue 2 kind of thing. But like these aren't the same length either. Each volume is a different length as well. So it's kind of just like, yo, here's chapter 1 of a book. It could be short or it could be long. It's just like, just enjoy the whole thing. And it's really cool that it's like, this could have been like, like 9, 10, 12 volumes. Like it could have been like a manga where it goes on forever, but like it feels like consistent with each story, how long it needs to be.
Yeah. I agree wholeheartedly with that point.
Also, what I love about these books is when I got to the end of it, even though I was like, okay, assign, like air quotes for us, assign reading, we're doing volumes 1 and 2. Cool, I can do that. No harm, no foul. Once I got to the end of volume 2, I had to stop myself to go downstairs and pick up volume 3 and just to keep on going. Because it's like, I had to stop myself because this book is it's very bingeable. It's very like, once you start, you don't want to stop, especially when you get to, I can only imagine how frustrated people who were picking this up when they were first coming out, like when they first picked up volume 2 or volume 3, and then like the big cliffhangers or the big things happen at the end. They're like, okay, now I don't want to wait until the next volume. It's like, I want to keep reading. What is this bullshit?
So I was in the space of the volume 6 was not out when I finally got everything. And I was like, oh, mama, I need that book.
Yeah.
It was bad. And like, luckily it wasn't too far away, but I was like, I need this so bad. Please give me my drug. I need that Scott Pilgrim book.
And it's really interesting that this is a really fast turnaround from being a comic into a movie. The comic wasn't even done. Like that's how good this book was, and I guess how successful it was. That like Edgar Wright's like, yo, like this book rules. I need people to know about this book. It's like, comic characters will go 60 years before they get an adaptation. Scott Pilgrim, its final volume wasn't even out when the movie got made. And like, that's just like, that's really incredible.
Yeah. Edgar Wright clearly had like a real love and appreciation and passion for what Bryan Lee O'Malley put on the page, because I think he really taps into in film language what was being done in comic language. Like there's a very connected mind about that. And I do think like visually the film gets a bit weaker as it gets further away from what the comic was doing. Because all of a sudden you feel like not that the movie gets bad, but like you feel when it stops being Edgar Wright adapting Bryan Lee O'Malley's vision and becomes Edgar Wright figuring it out on his own. And like trying to capture the same style, but like it's not the same. It's not the same as when he has the template of what Bryan Lee O'Malley did.
Thank God it's not like a Game of Thrones situation. No. Like that movie is still great all the way through. It's just like you can tell that like a lot of like, especially the like some of the villains, like they just don't get fleshed out anymore. Yeah. Like they just like get to a point where like, oh, I'm just gonna fight this dude. Don't even worry about who they are really.
But even just from like a paneling, like the way he was doing the transitions and the panels, and he was like matching the comics, and like that all just kind of stops. At a certain point in the movie, and it stops because the template isn't there anymore.
Because now that you say that, like when I think about all the cool transitions, like whether it's a bus scene or like the NV scene when she calls him, like that is just the comic book. Like it is straight up just like 1-to-1 for a lot of the great stuff. And you are right, like that does kind of fade away in that last half of the movie, despite still being a good movie. But that's a good point.
Edgar Wright has like a really great and capable style all his own. That keeps things at a fast pace. So like it still works with what he was doing with the movie, but like there is you will notice, I think, especially as you go through these books again and think about the movie, like you will notice that difference where like, and this is where it switched into full, this is Edgar Wright having to decide the style and not Bryan Lee O'Malley deciding the style anymore.
Because Scott Pilgrim took a couple of years to get made. So like I think volume 5, I don't know if volume 5 was that.
No, I think it was only 1 through 4.
That definitely makes sense.
Going back to what's in volume 2, you got just another example of Scott staying away from talking about his past. He's literally telling Ramona that he doesn't even remember his high school girlfriends, which is really insulting in the very volume where you just saw Lisa and Kim.
And that's him trying to sound like, oh, I'm a cool guy, I had a lot of girlfriends, I don't even remember all of them. Like, Scott, you don't need to be doing this.
It's really off-putting, and it's really, again, like that turned off emotion, turned off empathy kind of thing. We get Ramona has her cat Gideon. Which Scott jokes about, is he named after your secret other boyfriend in New York? Oh, little Giddy. Little Gideon. That little stinker is going to be something. Some other stuff I want to highlight. I really like Scott's talking to Julie. And he's so like, Julie's giving him shit for like how he can be a complete ass, and that she told him not to go out with Ramona, how he's going to screw her up, and she's been through enough and all this kind of stuff. And Scott's just like 100% in his own space, 100% in his own head. And all he's focused on is like, oh God, Stacy and Ramona are hanging out. Is Stacy going to rat me out for my cheating? Oh no, oh no, oh no. And
am I going to get in trouble for my actions?
And then also, like, he needs to figure that out and resolve it, and he needs to go find them. And then he's like, I'm going to play Sonic 3. What the heck was I doing? I can't deal with this right now. And so thus Ramona is out and gets jumped by knives, which again, like another cool world building thing is where Ramona's like, yo, hold on just a second. Snap. It breaks the
You can't just break shit, Ramona.
And
then again, that's a line where my name's Knives Chat, I'm a Scottaholic. I'm like, that's a fun little fight. She keeps calling her fat, you fat ass white girl, and I'm like, you're so funny, Knives. She's just a normal lady. You're just jealous.
I really like this is a really strong moment in the book, I think, where Knives recognizes Ramona from earlier at the library, and she pictures Ramona with this evil smirk looking at her, which definitely didn't happen. And but it is also like Knives realizes Scott was cheating on her. She realizes it all on her own right there, and I think that's really good. I think that's a really good turn.
And as always, like whenever somebody gets cheated on, like unless the other person is actually like a dirtbag who was involved in it, like the other person is not the person you should be fighting with. It's the boyfriend or girlfriend that was cheating on you, not that person that they were cheating you with. And that's just like a thing of like, oh, you guys are pointing your anger at the wrong people and for multiple characters.
The way Knives sees it, because obviously she's still head over heels for Scott, and she thinks Scott can do no wrong, even though she realizes he cheated on me. But her anger is directed towards towards Ramona, Because in her brain, Ramona is the reason Scott cheated.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
So
It's not
But-
Scott being
which,
an asshole.
which is to
Yeah.
Knife's credit, she's 17.
No,
like,
yeah,
that's
absolutely.
very like her emotional responses at least are like rational in the sense of like her age compared to Scott. Like her responses to things are very fair. For who she is.
And again, Scott's
it's
whole thing is like,
very-
oh my God, is my new girlfriend going to find out that I cheated on her with my other girlfriend?
And especially when she's doing like the naive defense of him, and saying like he would never do that. He's such a sweet guy.
Yeah.
All that kind of stuff. Like it's very much colored by that teenager perspective
Yeah,
of what she thinks love is.
As I was saying, it's a very much a high schooler teenager reaction where you don't get mad at the person who did the deed, you get mad at the person who they did the deed with.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And that's like because I'm sorry, I just got flashbacks of my own of drama class and other friends who are discussing high school drama where they like, oh, so and so cheated on me with this other person, and they go to the other person and like TP their house or some stupid thing like that, to try to get back at them because it's like, you took my boyfriend or my girlfriend away from me. It's like, dude, go to the person who cheated on you. They're the real scumbag here.
As a person who's been cheated on more than I wish I had in my life, let me tell you, the correct answer is you get mad at both.
There
you go.
That's as someone who, I've got cheated on before, so get mad at both.
Yeah. Don't pick either side. They're both wrong. Again, talking about Bryan Lee O'Malley's paneling and Edgar Wright recreated it. The Envy Adams conversation on the phone. You get a lot of the little panels with the camera roll, the photo booth photos of when she was Natalie. I think that's all very, very sweet. Ben brought up the moment earlier when Wallace comes home and finds out Envy called, which I think is really good. Like there's an acknowledgement of like, even people who know Scott's a shitty person, there is a judgment of like what Natalie did to Scott and how it affects Scott.
Yeah.
And I'm super excited for us to talk about how that gets fleshed out in the rest of the books.
Yeah,
but like,
there's also a buildup. Like his parents talked about how it's like, hey, it's been over a year since Natalie, and Scott always cuts him off. And he's like, I don't want to talk about that. They always mentions like, oh, Scott's had a really big breakup with this one girl that he was head over heels with, and she was the one who ended it. And it messed him up. Not to say that excuses any of Scott's actions henceforth. It sure as hell doesn't. But it also gives to light. It's like, oh, so this probably just like amplified his being a douchey or his douchiness even more.
Yeah. And it is important to note that like Scott went a while being single post Envy and then dates Knives. And you're right, like, this isn't an excuse for Scott, but there is like damage was done, like people were hurting each other there. And we're going to explore that in future books, but like I think the crumbs about Envy and Natalie and like what's up and how that affects Scott and how that could affect her is really well built into this volume.
I really like in the book that it's Envy who calls Scott and gives him the gig.
Me too.
I think
I like that too.
That's I forgot that's what happened from the adaptation, and that makes it even more worse in a way because like she's clearly goading him and she's like, "What? I can be jealous. I hear you have a new girlfriend." Envy's also a shitty person. And it's just like shitty people create shitty people who hurt other people. And it's like, oh man, like Scott, maybe you just need to move, bro. You like go to America or something. I love the Clash of Demon Head stuff. Like, man, what iconic, awesome designs. Like, what a cool band. Like the first time you see Envy, I'm like, damn, like that is a cool lady.
Especially they have her is it the drummer?
Yeah.
The cyborg drummer.
Yeah.
She's in the movie, but like you just kind of blink and you see her and then she's gone.
Yeah.
Like they recreated the design, but they had no room for the character.
Mm-hmm.
Going back to how Bryan Lee O'Malley does women really well, when they're talking about the gig, Kim is sitting on the couch and she brings up like Envy, oh, your ex-girlfriend. And Kim's talking and no one's listening to her, but she says, I saw her on the cover of Now. She's pretty and she's closing in on herself, getting self-conscious all over again. Again, like kind of a trauma thing reactivated for her because as we kind of allude to, and I think it makes sense, Kim is going to follow Scott to Toronto and guess who he's going to be dating instead of Kim at that point in time.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of self-consciousness baked into that. And I think that's all written really well.
And then isn't it it's in the book where like Kim also like she shows up there and she's like wearing high heels and she's all dolled up too and stuff.
Yeah. Everyone's like, holy shit, Kim's in high heels.
Yeah.
Which is also in that moment where you meet Joseph, who's the boyfriend of her coworker Holly.
Oh yeah.
And I love Joseph because Joseph will be silent, and then he'll say like just some hard shit. And then this is Joseph the whole time. It's like all Joseph will do is just kind of stare and he'll say the hardest thing. And so in this context, it was talking about the bass player, which is Todd. I haven't seen him. Is he hot? I don't know. Is he hot, Joseph? And Joseph just looks away and then he says, he is as hot as the flames of the hell you bitches are going to. And Joseph is great. Joseph is a great side character.
He shows up more? I don't remember at all.
He does.
Okay,
Joseph,
cool.
we will see Joseph again. He pretty much he shows up in pretty much the same amount in context every time.
Just drops a banger.
He just kind of to be there and like say some deep shit.
Joseph is like the silent type who only speaks when he has something really good to say.
Yeah. Like silent.
Other than that, he's quiet 90% of the time.
We get the moment where Knives finds out that Scott used to date Envy, which she didn't know before, and her big "what the hell" reaction, which is really great. This one right here.
Don't they just literally like take that and like put that on Knives' face in the movie? I feel like
they put the emoji reaction over her. They blur her actual face out and put the emoji reaction,
really
which is also just as effective. In the context of its medium of film.
I love it.
I want to, before we talk about the end of this volume, I do want to go back a little bit and spotlight what I kind of forgot. And like this was the first time reading this bit where I thought more about it. What it is this time, Scott is telling Ramona how he doesn't remember much of the year that he and Envy broke up. And he's doing his still like Ramona asks, why were you wasting? He says, no, I don't drink. And she's like, oh yeah, sure. Which is the thing that's already been brought up about Scott is everyone's like, oh right, yeah, but Scott definitely drinks. And he says, my memory of that year is hazy. And she's like, did you graduate? He's like, I don't remember, whatever. But the important part is that he's like, my first real memory is that there was this restaurant that opened way out on Queens West. You remember some restaurant better than your last year of college? And he's like, no, but like, you gotta listen. It was my favorite restaurant. And I ate there like 5 times a week. And I tried to get a job there for months. And then I finally did. And she's like, you're totally making this up. Free food, my favorite food, free. And a week after I got the job, literally the 7 days, the place got shut down by the DOJ for selling drugs or money laundering or some other bad type of thing. And that
the Gilded Palace of Flying Burritos. I love the name of that place.
Now there's 2 important things to that, which is one that like this accentuates like Scott's ambivalence and apathy about getting another job. Like that's definitely baked into the way he feels in connection to that. Like he finally got a good thing after Envy, and then he got slammed down again.
Yeah.
But more importantly, and something I never caught before, this is the first time Scott actually tells a story about his past to Ramona. And Ramona doesn't believe it's real.
Yeah.
Which is really important. And I never really thought about that, the fact of like, because it's all played for comedy that Ramona's just like, you're making this up. This is the saddest thing. You're crazy. I didn't really think about the fact that this is the first time that Scott shares something real from his past and Ramona totally doesn't take it seriously.
This could just be me reading into it, being an ex-alcoholic. Do you think that year he doesn't remember, he was like just going hardcore, being real sad and drinking a lot, and that's why he doesn't remember?
I mean, there definitely was drinking involved. I won't say that like that's the only reason.
I
think it's also that Scott does literally mind hole things on purpose. To not think about them anymore. And so I think it's a combination.
Okay.
But like we know Scott was drinking a lot at the time. As people who have read the books, we know that that's going to come up that Scott was drinking during that time.
He's not just drinking Coke Zero or whatever, Diet Coke.
Nope.
Yeah, he very much lies about like and like also something he puts in a mind hole. I'm not really like I don't drink.
He puts it in his mind,
but he doesn't. But he does. He said so. Like he says now, like I don't drink, but he doesn't talk about the fact that like I don't drink anymore or anything like that. He has turned it into I don't drink because I never drank. Because I don't want to think about the time that I did. And like that's the person who Scott is he's like, I don't like that thing about myself. I'm gonna throw it down the hole and never think about it again.
Yeah, I'm just gonna repress it.
But there's so many of those things in his life that he's turned into that he genuinely has like, I do think some of the comic interpretation that Bryan Lee O'Malley is going for is that Scott is a person. You know, there's a lot of fantastical things in this world. Scott is a person who has legitimately messed up his memory by emotionally doing this to himself.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Like there are things that Scott like doesn't want to talk about and he wants to ignore, and there are genuinely things that Scott was so painfully hurt by he shoved them away to the point where he literally doesn't remember them.
Yeah, I mean that's a real ass thing too. Yeah.
I wanted to highlight, because this is also a recurring joke that happens really well, which is where they're at the Clash of Demon Head show, and Julie says, in reference to this band sucks, that's what they'll be saying about you on Sunday. And Scott says, at least something you insult. And Ramona says, Scott, that was not a good comeback. And Steven Still's over there like, that actually was not bad for Scott.
For Scott, that's like a 9 out of 10.
Scott is terrible at comebacks, and I love whatever it's in the
It was almost a complete sentence.
The story. Yeah.
No, I'm Luke Wilson.
No, I'm Luke Wilson, yeah.
That's great. I love it.
The Luke Wilson joke.
And yeah, volume 2 ends at like a really great point where I'm like, I just want to continue reading, because it's right when the concert's starting and you meet Envy and like Todd, and like, oh, that's Todd, that is the guy that I dated, and it's like, see you next week, and I'm like, it's gonna be longer than a week.
I just remembered I wanted to go back to
the convo.
Yeah, the convo between Envy and Scott real quick, which is in that convo, Scott's she says, what, like, do I have ulterior motives or something? Am I a user? Which is something Scott said earlier when he was challenging Kim, I think.
Yes.
Or Stacy. And Scott says, you're such a user. It's not like I have to ask. And this is, there's an important parallel that always, Bryan Lee O'Malley's doing this a couple of times. There's another, I can't immediately find the picture, but there's another part where in the first volume, Scott is accused of stuff by Kim, and he says, I'm offended, Kim. Wounded Envy.
Hurt Kim.
And this gets brought up again by another character, like, again, paralleling these emotions in each other, that like, it's not because they heard the same thing. It's because the same thing is happening to that person at that moment. They're living in the same emotional space. And Scott's doing that here with Envy, where he's saying, you are a user. And this is, he questions that the same way Envy's questioning that about herself in that moment, to bring that up. Anyway, yeah.
You know what? When I was reading volume 1 and you're a user, for some reason I read it as you're an usher, and I was like, that must be some Canadian thing I don't know. And then it came back in volume 2 as a user. I'm like, oh, I just read that word wrong. I had no context until now. I was like, what the hell is an usher? I'm not gonna look it up. Like, is Usher Raymond our singer? Like, what? Like, yeah. Young Neil.
And the last thing is young Neil with knives at the show, and I love Steven just being like, did she seduce Neil?
Oh yeah, Scott dated Knives briefly, and then like Neil's gonna date her even more briefly, or whatever.
Yeah,
it's pretty good.
Yeah. The humor in these books is just, it's top notch.
It holds up, like really, like it takes place at a specific time, but like I feel like even like from decades from now, like it's still gonna be a really funny, really poppy book.
Yeah,
it's really clever. It's a really clever book.
I know where the books are going pretty intimately, and I will say, like, just spotlighting what I love about book 2 is, while we lose Lucas Lee fairly early, the build up for the Envy and Todd stuff is so crucial and core to the rest of the story. Both backwards and forwards for multiple characters. I really appreciate that volume 2 gives it proper build-up, because volume 3 you'll see does a lot. And I'm super excited to get into it, but like it's very meaty, and I don't think it would work as well if you didn't have some of the time to build into it in volume 2.
Yeah.
Ben, any other thoughts on volume 2?
Volume 2 is great. It has I think what I love most about volume 2 is that we get more into Scott's past. Like, I mean, this is going to be a theme throughout the rest of the run, but looking back into what happened to Scott, like one of the reasons why I wanted to go into volume 3 right after I put down volume 2 was to get those, like, what exactly happened, because I do know what happens, but it's been a while since I last read these books, so my memory's faded a little bit. And I'm like, what exactly happened? And now that I'm older, I want to pick up on the more subtle details that I never picked up last time. Because last time I picked up things like, oh, Envy's just a bitch. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And now it's like reading into this and like, okay, so maybe there's some drama, maybe there's some other stuff. not to psychoanalyze her or anything, but there's always more going on. And I know this is only volume 2, but this buildup is there, and I want to get into it. And I do think the buildup was great. Like, even later on, the seeing the buildup, or not the buildup, but the relationship between Scott, Lisa, and Kim, that comes to a head much later down the line.
Yeah.
And a lot of the stuff, it makes me realize how much I love this book. I mean, while I do like all that, the anime, the video game references, it is a story about growing up, but it also shows us that all the mistakes, like the major mistakes you thought you got rid of, some way, or you thought you left behind, in some way, shape, or form, they may come back to haunt you, and you have to reconcile with them. There are good ways to reconcile, which is having a one-on-one talk and just being like, look, this is how I was feeling back then, or realizing that you were a jerk the whole time and you were in the wrong, or something completely different. And it's like maybe they were in a complete, and all you needed was closure. There's just all these, and just like Sparkz, you said, Bryan Lee O'Malley writes these women so well. They're not just one note. They're not. I mean, they all have their shtick. Like Kim is is not the depressive one, but she's the cynical one. Ramona's like, I'm just gonna do my own thing. Stacy's a little bubbly. Julie is Julie. But there's always more to them. And they're not just one note. They all have depth. They all have lives, essentially. And that's what I love most about this book is, while the book is called Scott Pilgrim, I care more about the characters than I do Scott Pilgrim. I care more about Ramona. I care more about Wallace, oddly enough. I care more about seeing the lives of Kim, of Stacy, of oh god, even Envy, Natalie, when we see her. It's like, what did you do? Like, as when I was first reading this and I got to the end of issue 2, or volume 2, excuse me, I'm like, what did you do? Because even though it happened in high school for me, there was also a breakup that I went through that I did not take very well. And it really hit home for me. I was like, oh, is this kind of like what happened to me in a way? In some like 7 degrees of Kevin Bacon sort of way?
Yeah. And what is really interesting about the book, like if you don't know anything about it or the movie and you just look at like the cover of Scott Pilgrim, it's like deceiving how like emotionally intelligent the book is.
Yes.
And like how rich, like you just looking at the first level, like you think it'll be like, oh, it's gonna be like a fun kung fu book, and like it is that, but it's also really smart and it has a lot of heart, and like it challenges like real things adults go through. And but not in like a cheeky like comic way. It's like, no, we're really gonna talk about this shit while also having fun and big comic book battles. Like it's a really cool, like it's why I love comic books. It's like comic books can be so many different things. They look one way but can be presented in a different way. And it's just like it's a really great book.
Yeah. As a major fan of this book series, like it very much to me holds up with strong literature pieces that are about coming of age. Things like Paper Towns or Perks of Being a Wallflower, Looking for Alaska, these kinds of things. Scott Pilgrim, I feel like, plays in those same veins. It just happens to be in the comic medium.
Yeah.
I think Bryan Lee O'Malley's world and story and characters are exceptional. And I'm so excited for us to go through the rest of it, because I think it's just wonderful. It's obviously foundational for a lot of other pieces of media that have been inspired by it. And I do mean directly now. We've got the new anime show, but we had the video game and the movie, which are both, I think, wonderful as adaptations and interpretations of this story. But I love, like, it all stems from this, and what Bryan Lee O'Malley did, especially as you pointed out, like at the time, is stunning.
Yeah, like if this book came out like literally like yesterday, it would feel perfect. Like there's like. But obviously, besides some dated specific references from like the 2000s, like this is a very still a very modern book, a very progressive book. Like if this were published today, like it would still be just as good, in my opinion.
Yeah.
100% agree.
Yeah, and I very much agree with your point, Ryan, that like it's far more emotionally intelligent than what it looks like on the surface.
Yeah, it's deceiving almost with how oh wow, like we're really going for it in this one.
Yeah. All right. I think that'll do it. I loved this. I love going back to these books because it's exactly for that stuff where it's like, for you, where it's like, I don't even remember Lisa. Like, oh my god!
And I haven't read the last 2 volumes, so like that's gonna be literally new comics for me. So it might as well have came out yesterday. So.
I'm so thrilled.
No, I was going to say, when I saw Comic Drake's video about Scott Pilgrim, and obviously the show came out, we are going to talk about the show eventually. And the way that Drake was talking about things about the books is like, I'm actually really glad we're going to be doing a book club reading of these books again.
Yeah,
because it got me thinking. It's like, oh yeah, when I first read those, I was in my mid-20s. I was almost Scott's age. I was pretty close. I was like maybe 3 or 4 years older than he was in the book.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what has changed? Like, I mean, I'm 33 now. What's changed? What's different? Let me reread these books. And now that we are doing this, it's like, oh yeah, now we could talk about it. It's like, oh, okay, I didn't notice this the last time I read it, because it has been a while since I like really sat down and read these books. And I'm really excited we're doing this. So yay.
Yeah, like watching the movie, I think it came out my senior year of high school or junior, I don't remember, but like I was a teenager, right? So like I didn't pick up on all the nuances of the movie. And then I read the comic a couple years later, but I am Scott's age, so I'm still a stupid kid, right? And now literally a decade later, now I'm in my 30s, and I'm like, oh man, there's a lot of really good shit in here. Like I really like, it might not like seem so initially, but like we've talked about this whole what are these called? Episodes? Sorry, I'm sleeping. This whole episode, I'm like, man, there's a lot more nuance than like, not that I didn't give credit for it. I never realized because I was too young. I was in the Scott Pilgrim mindset, but now that I'm an adult, I'm like, oh man, he's doing a lot of really great, like subtle work here through this comic book.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really excited for us to do it. I'm excited for Brandon to be able to join us for the next one. We'll get some of his thoughts on volume 1 and 2, just to jump us in, and then we'll go through volumes 3 and 4. And for those following with us on Fake Nerd Book Club, we will be doing 3 and 4 as a couple, but we Ben and I know volume 5 and volume 6 are rather beefy and meaty.
They're meaty both.
There's a lot of stuff going on there. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on there, a lot for us to talk about. So those two will be split into their own individual episodes.
Love it.
They got some chunk to them.
Yeah, they do. So we'll be doing that, and we'll see you again for that next time. We're also still going to have Ryan's 2 Dr. Doom volumes.
Oh, I thought you were saying we're also playing the game, but we're not.
Oh, no, I was going to say for Fake Nerd Book Club, we are still doing Ryan's 2 Dr. Doom volumes. Expect that to be our next Fake Nerd Book Club episode to come out. We're still excited to do that for our rotations. And then, yes, in Scott Pilgrim content, this is our first Scott Pilgrim release. We are doing it all. We're going to be playing the video game together. We are going to be doing a film review revisit for ourselves, and we are going to talk about the new show. We're doing all the Scott Pilgrim things across all the mediums,
and they're all good.
Yeah,
what a great month we're about to have. All maybe like the best adapted thing ever made.
It might
honestly
be.
I don't want to get into it now, but one of the things I cannot wait to talk to you guys about is the television show.
Yeah.
I don't know much about it except for like some like early stuff like, hey, it's not what you think it is. And like I'm very excited.
I'll flat out say it. I love that show.
Hell yeah.
That's great.
I absolutely love that show.
I'm excited to have another Scott Pilgrim thing I love. Yep. So we'll be doing all that. Check out our other stuff, Fake Nerds Watch. We got still some of our Strike stuff trickling out, and we are currently covering Monarch and Invincible over on that feed. We've got some movie reviews coming out before the end of the year. We've got some other plans in the works that we're hoping to get out before the end of the year or just after we start the new year. So check it all out, fakenerdpodcast.com. You can follow us, like, subscribe, please. We love that. Do all that stuff. We got a Patreon again. The website has the links for everything, so you can go check it out or check out just what's in our YouTube channel here.
Heck yeah.
Ben, where can people find you?
Well, they could find me still recovering from COVID-19, yay, at Ben Magnet 27 on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Threads. You can also find me writing for Old School Gamer Magazine, Fusion Gaming Magazine, GoNintendo.com, and playing Mary Frankenstein D and Dark, which at the time of this recording, a new episode's coming out tomorrow morning. So, woo!
So excited. And Ryan, where can they find you?
You could find me taking off at DJ Tony Snark all over the internet.
That's so true. And you can find me just fretting over my precious little life at Sparkz Witty on Instagram and Twitter, SPARKZ Witty. And until next time.
I should have had a pun where I said I was taking on I was like, it's Ben Magnet versus the world.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
There it is.
There it is.
TM. All right. We'll see you next time. And until then, stay fake nerds.